Today we're going to be going over converting Adobe Output Designer files into DocOrigin design files. Right now you're seeing the screen for the DocOrigin design tool, and I'm going to go ahead and click File, Open, and by default it's going to show me all XATW files, which are DocOrigin design files, but I'm going to go ahead and change it to my Adobe Central form files. So here I'm going to go ahead and open our original form. And then just within a couple seconds, it automatically imports and converts fields, text, logo, graphics, and so forth. Now there's a couple ways I can see if what I'm looking at is really what I expected to get. So one of them is looking at the original design file. So here we have our design file on DocOrigin. There's a page 1, which is actually converted into a pane. So I'll just put my cursor here. And then there's a pane 2, which is really what's called the overflow page, or page 2, and then page 3, which is also translated to pane 3. Now in our design file, if I flip over to the Adobe Output Designer form, here we have a QR barcode, some graphics and text and a table. Here's our page 1. Here's our overflow to page 2, which is similar to page 1, just a little less detail on the top, header and footer. And then lastly, here's our page 3. But what I really need to do is run the file with the data to see what we're expecting. So I actually have our original file with the original data file ran in a PDF already opened. So just to know what I'm looking for, obviously we have some registration number and quarter, and then we have our full table on page 1, some totals, and some footer information down here, and a logo. Okay, so going back to the DocOrigin design, the best way for us to really truly test our form and see the results is to actually run a PDF so we can compare the output. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Tools menu, and I'm going to select the PDF Preview. And it brings up a form verification report, which indicates a few issues with the form, which we will review in a second. It's just indicating some logos it can't find and some text objects that don't have data in it. I'm going to go ahead and click Continue here. And then I actually want to use our data. So I'm going to use our original field nominated data, which will be in our XML folder. And then I'm going to go ahead and change it from the XML file to any supported data. And here is the original data. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. But just to see the data, I'm going to right mouse click on it and say Edit with Notepad, just so we can see that it's actually an original field nominated data file, which is what we expect from the Adobe Output or JetForm tool. So here's a form call, and here's some field nominated files with their tags, as well as the content in them. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the design and press OK, and then run a preview. Now when I hit preview, we're going to see a merge log, which also reports some issues that it sees. So I'm going to say yes, I want to see the merge log, which is going to run a merge log in Notepad, and I will just push it to the side and we'll review that later. So go ahead and click yes. So here is our output running our DocOrigin file with the original field nominated data file. So it looks pretty close to what we expected. So looking at the PDF, we can see some things visually that we might want to correct, such as formatting the amounts in the third column here. And also if we scroll down, we can see that the date and contact phone number was truncated by these 3 periods or ellipse. But I also can see that in my log report. So let's take a look at that now. So if I go ahead and highlight our log report that was brought up, I can actually see that wage base and contact phone number was truncated, and this is because the way that JetForm Designer works, you can actually have it ignore the edge or the boundaries of the field. So you can say truncated once you hit the end of the field, or you can say just use the top left corner of the field as a position marker and then overflow past the field boundaries. So we just have to expand those out, and then it indicates that it can't find the logo path in the form verification report. So let's go ahead and make those corrections. Okay, so going back to the DocOrigin design tool, we're going to go ahead and make the corrections of the things we saw in the form verification report, as well as the merge log and things we saw visually. So the first thing I want to do is replace the QR barcode, which is currently an image, with a field. That way, if you have to change the QR barcode, you don't have to rescan it and place it as an image. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my field tool up here with the F, and then I'm going to drag it over my logo image. That way I know that it's sized properly and in the right position. And then I'm going to double click on the center to bring up the common properties of that object. So here is the field name. I'm going to go ahead and put QR barcode, which is actually the form name. And then in the display as, I'm going to change it from text to become a barcode. And then once I change that, I'm going to get the setting of the field, which barcode do I want to use. I'm going to drop this down and select QR barcode. And then lastly, I'm going to go ahead and put the initial value as C003H space 001. So simply by doing those small actions, we're going to get a QR barcode. Now that I have the barcode set up there, I know it's on all 3 pages, so I'm going to copy it to all 3 pages. But I'm going to go ahead and remove the barcodes from the page. So the barcodes are represented as an image. So if I hit my Shift key, I'm going to click on the same area, and then now you can see that I actually have the object property of G1, and it's an image. It's defined to fit inside the box. So I know I have the image, and I want to go ahead and delete it. Another nice feature of DocOrigin is it also has this Form Explorer, which basically is the exact replica of the design area represented in a hierarchy. So it indicates that I have a form object, and then I have a page 1 that's made up of 3 panes, which actually are pages. And here is the image, G1, and it's displayed as an image by showing the leaf icon. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and then I'm going to move this to the other 3 pages. The next thing I'm going to do is format the amount fields in column 3 and a few other places. So since the formatting for those amount fields are basically the same, I'd like to lasso this area, but if I lasso it with my cursor, I'm going to grab text and some boxes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off that layer. So I can simply select View and turn off Non-Fields Are Active. That way I can't select a text by mistake. So I can simply lasso this whole area knowing that I'm only going to be picking up fields. Now I know all of these fields I want to basically format as a currency except for the contribution rate, which I'll change later. So just by selecting that area, I have all the currency amounts, and then they are formatted as a number, which was carried over from the IFD. And then all I want to do is add 2 decimals and the 1,000 placeholder. So I can also select default picture settings that are in here, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that as default because really the 2 decimals and the thousands are going to take care of everything I need. And then, as I pointed out, the contribution rate is actually 4 decimals. I want to go ahead and change that to 4 decimals. And then go ahead and click Save. Now when I click Save, you'll see that the form verification report is actually shorter because we no longer have the fields or the logos that are not found. So now it's just simply indicating that there are 6 text objects that have no content in them. Go ahead and continue. And then it's the first time we've saved it, so I'm going to go ahead and move my form to this folder. Now the next thing I want to do before I run another PDF preview is I want to stretch out this signature date and contact phone number field. So I can drag it out here, or I can go ahead and zoom in on this area, this page down here, just to drag out this field. It doesn't really matter if I make it too long, as long as it's long enough. And then I'll stretch out the phone number, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Save. I'm going to go ahead and keep the log, because I'll show you that one of the fields has disappeared from the report saying that it's no longer being truncated. We'll say yes to that. And then here you can see now our fields in the column are formatted. If I scroll down, I have my contribution rate as 4 decimal points. And then lastly, we now have our entire date field and contact phone number. So pretty quick to go ahead and correct those things. Now even though we could see that those fields were no longer getting truncated, I'm going to go to our field report and show you that that field called date is no longer here. Now the next thing we're going to look at is that the name and signature is pulled in by a field, and then another field that uses a hat graph command, which is one of the ways you can import a graphic into a field. But you could also have had it set up or defined as a image field, but in this case they set it up with a hat graph inside of the data, so it's not getting pulled in because the field is displayed as a text field. So we're going to make that correction now. So let's go back to our designer, and I'm going to simply scroll back to the left-hand side, and then here the signature field you can see is displayed as text. So if I double click on here, it shows that it's a signature field and it's displayed as text. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to display as an image. And then another setting for the image is the object feature, which is down here. So in my object properties, I'm going to select Object tab, and it says Fit Inside the Box, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this over here and then downward, because I know the text comes into the side. And I'll just tuck it down here. And this means if the signature is really big or really small, it doesn't matter. It's always going to fit in this area because we really don't want it to overlap anything. And then I've already changed the data to point to an image from a demo signature in our data file. So just jumping over to our data file, which is opened in my Note tab, I can just do a find, and I think the person for the demo is Michelle, and here it is. So I want to show you this. So we have our hat field signature, and then it indicates $F/images/Michelle Adams signature. And the reason I want to show you that is that you no longer have to hard code the full path. We can actually hard code relative to the form location. So in this case, from the form location, which is represented by the $F, we want to go back one folder because the form is in my XATW folder, and then forward into a folder called images, and that is where the logo is. And I can change that just by simply changing the data file. So it's great to use image fields for this very reason, that signatures can be different depending on what department a check is coming from, or in this case, this form. So let's go back to the designer and run our PDF preview. And I can again go to my Tools menu, PDF Preview, and it's going to still indicate, which we're going to go over in a second, these little fields have text objects that have no content. I'll hit Continue, and here it shows that in my data file is already saved into our Use My Test Data, and I'm going to hit Preview, and we should get a logo. I'm going to say no to the report this time because we don't have anything new to see right now. And then if I scroll down here, here is Michelle Adams' signature. So that's all cleaned up. Now the next thing we want to clean up is this third page. So in the original PDF, we don't want that third page. And so by default, when DocOrigin converts the file, it's going to assume that all pages want to be printed. So it turns them all on as mandatory. But in this case, we only want to print it if we have data for this page, which is basically the trigger that you used in JetForm, so it should be familiar. So the next two things we're going to do in our DocOrigin design is we're going to go ahead and select that, back up here, third page to be optional only. So if I go scroll down here, I'm just panning on my form report, I have a pane 3, which I know has been converted to page 3. And then if I look over in my object properties, it indicates that it's mandatory, which means whether it has data or not, print this page every time. And this is a great feature for if you have terms and conditions or a backer that's always to be printed. But simply by clicking this off, we will no longer get this page 3. So as I'm in this test mode, I can continue to go to my Tools PDF Preview, or I can just simply hit F5. Control F5 will bring up this dialog box, so I can cancel out of that. Or if I simply prick F5, it'll bring up my forms report and my log file until I clean it up, and then it'll just go directly to the PDF preview. So you can see here I only have 2 pages, so the third page has been dropped, which is our goal. The last thing we want to do is clean up anything that's showing up in the log file or the form verification report. So if you remember, the form verification report said that T1, 2, and 3, as well as T61, 2, and 3 are showing up as text objects, but they have no content in them. So I can actually use Find, which is a new feature in DocOrigin that wasn't available for Adobe Output Designer. So if I simply hit Control F, it gives me options of, do I want to look for a text string within a text label? Do I want to look for an object name, a specific typeface, a string within a script? I'm going to pick object name. And then I'm going to put T1, which is the text object name, and hit Find Next. And here it finds that simply I have a text object over my field of Social Security number. So if I go over to my Forms Explorer, sure enough, there's a text object called T1, and I also see a T2 and a T3 here. So I know that they're not necessary because they're not fields, so I'm going to go ahead and delete them. And I can also look and search for a T61 and clean that up just to get it out of my form verification report. So going over to my Form Explorer, here's my T61, and if I scroll down, sure enough, there's a T62 and a T63, which I simply hit the delete key to remove. Now if I hit save, I should not get a report on anything. And sure enough, that's cleaned up that report. Now I know I have a couple other cleanups, which we'll look at right now. So if I go ahead and hit F5, I'm going to go right to my PDF preview except for my log. And I'm going to say I do want to run this log to see what other issues are remaining, because we really don't want any remaining issues. So here's my form. It looks pretty good to me. The fields are coming in. Nothing's really being truncated. So if I go back to my form verification report, my new one, it tells me that wage base is being truncated, reporting payroll is being truncated, and RTS gross. So I'm going to go ahead and expand them out and then run the report one more time. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is point out one thing that's showing up in the log that's actually not causing any issues, but it's more just a warning indicating that if the pane needs to grow, do you want to allow it to break before and after? As soon as I hit 5, I still have something in my merge log, so I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and we're going to look at that. So the form looks okay to me. You know, if I page down here, I'm getting everything I need. I'm getting the signature. You know, nothing's getting truncated. I'm getting my formatting, and I don't have a page 3. So I'm going to see what the log report is indicating. And the one thing it's indicating, and it actually tells you what to do, it's indicating that we should set up our panes to have the option allow break before and allow break after on page 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to show you a quick way to do that. We're going to go back to the DocOrigin tool, and then here's my pane 1, 2, and 3. So page 1, it really indicates that all my panes inside need to be set as allowing breaks before and after. So if you see on the bottom corner here of my object properties, I have a pane tab, and I'm simply going to click the allow break after and allow break before and save it. So no form verification errors, and then if I hit F5, I should get a clean report. So you see that that dialog to indicate this run error in my merge log is no longer popping up, and my form looks exactly as I hoped it would be. And the next tutorial, if you want to jump there, is advanced features to show you how you can simplify the form using a dynamic design instead of a page-by-page basis. So that's it. This form is just a static 3-page form with an optional page 3. Thank you so much.